What's up, watch nerds? I have another amazing build today. Again, an amazing customer, an amazing subscriber reached out and asked me to make him a watch. He saw one of my previous builds and, well, he would like one similar. So, this is what we're doing today. Completely from scratch, all the parts laid out here as you can see them. First things first, chapter ring. Most of them have a little indexing nipple on them, but this one being plain, it really doesn't matter, even though it does. Next up is the crystal gasket. Now, some of these are directional, they can only go one way. Some of them, it doesn't matter. So as long as you're paying attention, you'll be alright. Now, after you make sure that you have the correct size die for pressing the crystal, I would suggest, just to make your life a little bit easier, I find if you put the case back onto the case when pressing the crystal, it helps to hold the case itself a little more securely in the bottom die. Alright, crystal secured. Make sure everything is good. You're all nice and level. You didn't screw nothing up so far. And since we have the press out, let's continue on with the case, and we are going to install the bezel. Now, I have already taken the gasket out of the bezel itself, and I'm going to take the case back gasket and the bezel gasket, give them a quick lube, and put the bezel gasket back in place, and have the case back gasket lubed up, ready to go when we are ready for it. Bezel gaskets can be a little bit fiddly sometimes, but they're not that bad. Just kind of got to get one side started and work your way around. Now, they do also come in different sizes, so if you find your bezel is maybe a little loose or on the other side a little bit too tight, maybe you want to try one of the other sizes. After that's installed, next up is the click spring. Now, unless it's a friction fit, you have to have a click spring in here, otherwise no click. Then you make sure again you swap out the die to the correct size and just press it in. Very simple. Sounds horrible, but as long as everything goes properly and you don't pinch the gasket, everything should work beautifully. Case completed, we move on to the dial and movement. And first of all, figure out which dial feet we need to use. All you need to do is make sure that the orientation of the crown is correct and your date is lining up properly. Then you'll know which holes to line up with the dial feet. Now, personally, I don't like to snip the feet, because I find if you give them just a little bit of a wiggle, they quite often snap off right at the base. So that works beautifully. After you get them snipped off, you grab the file and take down whatever is needed to make sure that the back of the dial is as flush as possible so that it sits up against the movement as perfectly as you can get it. That done, make sure you clean up the dial, ensuring that there is no shards of metal that might interfere in the movement. Once we have the dial attached, we're gonna set it down and check functionality. Make sure everything is moving properly. The date wheel is date wheeling, and spin it around. Make sure you get it to noon, and we can start installing some hands. Always the first thing to go on a three-handed watch like this is the hour hand. I like to give it a little bit of pressure downwards first of all, so that I can just get it to half seat, and then I can position it right, left as I need to. After I'm happy with the position, I make sure to seat it properly. Next, what I'm doing here is spinning the hour hand around so that it faces directly at 6. I don't always do this, but sometimes it can help with aligning the minute hand a little bit better. Once the minute hand is installed, we take it for a little bit of a spin, making sure to check the very tight tolerances between the hour and minute hands. Once you check the tolerance, then give it a spin around and make sure that you are aligned properly and that the date is turning over at the appropriate time. I apologize for the crappy camera angle here, but I'm sure you get the idea. It's the same as setting the other hands, you just need to be much more careful. And now is the best time to get into the tedious task of making sure everything is absolutely spotless for the last time, because next we get it all cased up. And now with the dial and movement side done, we can put this aside and focus back on the case for a few minutes. Case and dial clean, we finally get them together and get our first peek at what this is going to look like. Next, we move on to stem sizing. Now, I have a fairly decent idea of about how much I can snip off to begin with, so I typically start there and refine it afterwards. After snipping it, it's a really good idea to take a file and take off any burrs that might have happened from cutting, and it really helps when putting the crown onto the stem again. Now you need to clamp the stem firmly, but never on any of the parts that are going to be in through the keyless works, and never on the threads that you might have to use. So typically what I will do is what you'll see me do here, or I will use the back end of a pair of tweezers. Now that typically works for most stems. However, I have found in recent history some stems are a little bit thinner and a little more fragile than others, so this is not advised for some stems. You can also use a pin vise, which I do have, but neglect to use most times. Once you're happy with how your stem and crown are sized, you take it out for the final time and you apply some Loctite to the tip of the threads for the crown, making sure to wipe off the residue, and then you apply a little bit of lube to the crown gaskets. This helps for smoothness of operation as well as maintaining water resistance. That done, we grab our case back gasket and we install our case back. Now, really the final step for this build is the bezel insert. This is one of the easier things to do. Make sure your bezel is all the way to the right so that you're backed up against the notch in the click. Make sure you get it aligned. That's it, plain and simple. And there you have it. Another fabulous build going to another amazing subscriber. I love these, and if you guys ever want me to build you something, please just reach out to me. Email me, send me a message somehow. There's lots of ways to do it. It won't be difficult to find a way to get in touch with me. So thanks again, everybody. I love having y'all stop by. I love doing these builds for my viewers. Keep it coming. I want to grow this channel, something big. So like and subscribe. Love these builds. I will see you all again soon. Cheers, everybody.